Warning, viewer discretion advised. This video contains content that may be disturbing or triggering to some viewers. It includes detailed descriptions of violent crimes, graphic imagery, and discussions of sensitive topics such as murder, assault, and other criminal activities. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. If you are sensitive to such content, please consider watching another video. Stay safe and take care of your mental health. The case of Lucy Letby, the nurse of death. In this episode, we delve into the chilling case of Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse who was charged with the murder of multiple infants under her care. Join us as we explore the background, investigation, and shocking details of one of the most disturbing criminal cases in recent history. Welcome to 22, where we explore some of the most shocking and disturbing true crime cases in recent history. Today, we're delving into the chilling story of Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse whose name has become synonymous with one of the most horrifying criminal cases in the medical field. Lucy Letby worked at the Countess of Chester Hospital in the UK, a place where new lives begin and hope flourishes. But between 2015 and 2016, a dark cloud loomed over the hospital's neonatal unit. A series of unexplained infant deaths and near deaths began to raise alarms among the medical staff. These tragic events seemed to follow a disturbing pattern, all linked to the same unit where Letby was stationed. As suspicions grew, an internal investigation was launched, uncovering anomalies that pointed towards a sinister possibility. The hospital brought in the police, and a thorough investigation ensued, revealing a horrifying truth. Lucy Letby, trusted with the care of the most vulnerable patients, was accused of deliberately harming the infants under her watch. In this episode, we'll explore the background of Lucy Letby, the meticulous investigation that led to her arrest, and the shocking details that emerged during her trial. We'll also look at the impact of this case on the medical community and the families affected by these unimaginable crimes. Stay with us as we unravel the dark tale of Lucy Letby, the nurse who betrayed the trust of her profession and shattered countless lives. The Lucy Letby case stands out in the true crime genre for several reasons. Firstly, it involves a healthcare professional, someone entrusted with the care and safety of the most vulnerable members of society, newborn infants. This breach of trust is both shocking and deeply disturbing, shaking the very foundation of our faith in the medical profession. Secondly, the case highlights the challenges in detecting and proving medical crimes. Unlike more overt acts of violence, Letby's alleged actions were subtle and insidious, often disguised as natural medical complications. The investigation required meticulous attention to detail, with medical records, expert testimonies, and statistical anomalies playing crucial roles in uncovering the truth. Moreover, the Letby case brings to light the emotional and psychological toll on the families affected. The loss of a newborn is a profound tragedy, and the revelation that such losses were intentional adds an unimaginable layer of grief and horror. The case also underscores the importance of rigorous internal hospital investigations and the need for vigilant oversight to prevent such tragedies. In the broader context of true crime, this case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about human nature and the potential for evil in places we least expect. It serves as a grim reminder that trust can be betrayed in the most sacred of spaces and that vigilance is necessary even in environments dedicated to healing and care. As we explore the details of the Lucy Letby case, we will see how this narrative fits into the larger tapestry of true crime, offering lessons and reflections that extend beyond the immediate facts and into the very nature of trust, responsibility, and justice. Lucy Letby was born on January 4, 1990, in Hereford, England. She grew up in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood, and by all accounts, had a normal and unremarkable childhood. Friends and family described her as a bright and kind individual who was always eager to help others. From a young age, Letby expressed a strong desire to care for people, leading her to pursue a career in nursing. After completing her secondary education, Letby enrolled at the University of Chester, where she studied nursing. She excelled in her studies, demonstrating a strong aptitude for the medical field. Letby graduated with a nursing degree and soon secured a position at the Countess of Chester Hospital, starting her career in the neonatal unit. The Countess of Chester Hospital, located in Cheshire, England, is a respected healthcare institution serving the local community with a range of medical services. Among its various departments, the neonatal unit stands out as a critical area dedicated to the care of the most vulnerable patients, newborns who are premature or critically ill. The neonatal unit is a specialized department equipped with advanced medical technology designed to monitor and support the fragile lives of infants who require intensive care. The unit is staffed by a team of highly trained professionals, including neonatologists, nurses, respiratory therapists, and other specialists. These professionals work around the clock to provide life-saving care and to ensure that each newborn has the best chance at survival and a healthy development. Within the neonatal unit, infants are placed in incubators that help regulate their body temperature and protect them from infections. The unit is equipped with a variety of monitoring devices that continuously track vital signs such as heart rate, respiratory rate, and oxygen levels. This constant monitoring is crucial, as the condition of these infants can change rapidly. The staff in the neonatal unit must be vigilant and responsive, capable of making quick decisions and performing complex medical procedures under pressure. They administer medications, manage ventilators, and provide nutritional support, all while offering emotional support to the families of the infants. As the number of unexplained infant deaths and medical emergencies in the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital continued to rise, the hospital administration faced growing pressure to determine the cause. Dr. Stephen Brary and other senior consultants, alarmed by the unusual spike in incidents, initiated a more thorough internal investigation. The first step was to conduct a comprehensive review of all neonatal cases that had resulted in death or serious medical emergencies over the past year. This review involved examining detailed medical records, staff rosters, and incident reports to identify any patterns or anomalies. The findings were deeply concerning. It was noted that a significant number of these incidents occurred during the shifts when Lucy Letby was on duty. The hospital formed a specialized review panel comprising senior medical staff, administrators, and external experts. This panel was tasked with scrutinizing the cases to identify any potential medical explanations for the anomalies observed. They analyzed various factors, including the infant's medical histories, the treatments administered, and the specific circumstances surrounding each incident. One of the most striking findings was the presence of unusual and inexplicable medical conditions in the affected infants. These included unexpected drops in blood oxygen levels, sudden collapses without prior warning signs, and the detection of air embolisms. Additionally, there were instances of insulin spikes in infants who had no history of diabetes or related conditions. These anomalies were highly irregular and could not be easily explained by natural causes or medical errors. The review panel also discovered inconsistencies in the documentation. There were discrepancies in the timing of recorded events, unusual gaps in the medical notes, and instances where Letby's accounts of the incidents did not align with other staff observations. These inconsistencies raised further red flags and intensified the scrutiny on Letby. As the internal investigation progressed, the hospital administration took precautionary measures. Lucy Letby was moved to a non-clinical role where she would not have direct contact with patients. This decision was made to ensure the safety of the infants while the investigation continued. The hospital's executives recognized the gravity of the situation and the potential implications for patient safety and public trust. They decided to escalate the matter to external authorities. In May 2017, they contacted Cheshire Constabulary, requesting a formal criminal investigation into the unexplained deaths and medical emergencies. Once Cheshire Constabulary launched Operation Hummingbird, the focus shifted to gathering concrete evidence and building a strong case against Lucy Letby. The investigation team knew that to prove criminal intent, they needed to collect a substantial amount of detailed and irrefutable evidence. The first step was to conduct an exhaustive review of the medical records. Investigators meticulously analyzed the files of every infant who had died or suffered unexplained medical emergencies in the neonatal unit. This review sought to identify patterns and anomalies that could indicate deliberate harm. The detectives worked closely with medical experts who provided critical insights into the complex medical data, helping to distinguish between natural complications and suspicious activities. One key piece of evidence was the statistical analysis of the incidents. Medical statisticians were brought in to examine the timing and frequency of the events. Their analysis confirmed that the likelihood of such a high number of deaths and near-deaths occurring naturally, especially during Letby's shifts, was extremely low. This statistical improbability suggested that these were not random occurrences. Next, the police conducted extensive interviews with the hospital staff. Doctors, nurses, and other personnel who worked in the neonatal unit were asked to recount their observations and interactions with Letby. Many staff members provided testimonies about the unusual number of incidents during Letby's shifts and shared their growing suspicions. These first-hand accounts were crucial in painting a picture of the environment and the specific circumstances surrounding each case. The investigation team also reviewed CCTV footage from the hospital. While direct footage of the incidents was not always available, the recordings helped corroborate the timelines and provided additional context for the events. They also monitored Letby's movements and interactions, looking for any suspicious behavior. Forensic analysis played a significant role in gathering evidence. Detectives conducted a detailed forensic examination of Letby's electronic devices, including her computer and mobile phone. They found disturbing search histories and saved documents, including medical notes and handover sheets that contained sensitive information about the cases. Some of these documents had annotations that raised further suspicion about her intentions. Additionally, the search of Letby's home revealed personal notes and diaries. Among these were troubling entries that hinted at her state of mind and possible motives. In one note, Letby had written about her struggles and feelings of inadequacy, which the investigators believed could be linked to her actions. These personal documents provided insight into her psychological state and potential motives. Medical experts were also essential in building the case. They reviewed the evidence and provided testimonies explaining how the anomalies, such as air embolisms and insulin spikes, could not occur naturally in the absence of external intervention. Their expert opinions helped establish that the incidents were deliberate and not accidental. Throughout the investigation, the police faced the challenge of ensuring that their evidence was comprehensive and legally sound. They followed strict protocols to maintain the chain of custody for all physical and digital evidence, ensuring that it would hold up in court. As the investigation into the unexplained deaths and medical emergencies in the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital progressed, the evidence against Lucy Letby began to mount. By mid-2018, Cheshire Constabulary had gathered enough substantial evidence to take decisive action. On July 3, 2018, detectives arrived at Lucy Letby's home in Chester. The arrest was the culmination of months of meticulous investigation and careful planning. Letby was taken into custody on suspicion of the murder of 8 infants and the attempted murder of 6 others. The news of her arrest sent shockwaves through the community and the medical world, as it was almost unthinkable that a nurse, entrusted with the care of the most vulnerable, could be responsible for such heinous acts. Upon her arrest, Letby was subjected to thorough questioning by the police. Detectives presented her with the evidence they had collected, including the statistical anomalies, the medical experts' testimonies, and the forensic analysis of her electronic devices. Letby maintained her innocence, denying any involvement in the deaths and medical emergencies. While Letby was initially released on bail, the investigation did not cease. Detectives continued to scrutinize every piece of evidence and conducted further interviews with hospital staff and families affected by the incidents. The goal was to build an airtight case that would withstand the rigors of the judicial system. In June 2019, Letby was rearrested following the discovery of additional evidence. This time, the investigation had expanded to include more cases. Detectives identified several other suspicious incidents involving newborns who had suffered sudden and unexplained collapses. Letby was now facing accusations of attempting to murder 3 additional infants. By November 2020, the investigation had reached a critical point. After years of painstaking work, the police had compiled a comprehensive dossier of evidence. Letby was arrested for the 3rd time and subsequently charged with the murder of 8 infants and the attempted murder of 10 others. The charges were a result of the extensive evidence gathered, which included medical records, testimonies from medical experts, witness statements, and forensic data. As the investigation into the unexplained infant deaths at the Countess of Chester Hospital progressed, the role of medical experts became increasingly crucial. These experts were essential in interpreting complex medical data, providing authoritative opinions, and helping to build a robust case against Lucy Letby. The first step was enlisting neonatologists and pediatric specialists to review the medical records of the affected infants. These experts meticulously analyzed the charts, looking for patterns and anomalies that could indicate foul play. Their deep understanding of neonatal medicine allowed them to identify irregularities that might be overlooked by those without specialized knowledge. One of the key areas of focus was the presence of air embolisms in several infants. Air embolisms, which occur when air bubbles enter the bloodstream, can be fatal and are extremely rare in a controlled hospital environment. The medical experts explained how such embolisms could not happen naturally in the circumstances observed and suggested that they were likely introduced intentionally. Another significant anomaly was the unexplained spikes in insulin levels in infants who had no underlying medical conditions that would warrant such treatment. High insulin levels can cause severe hypoglycemia, leading to sudden and critical health crises. Medical experts testified that these spikes could only result from external administration of insulin, pointing to deliberate harm. The experts also provided critical insight into the unusual patterns of deterioration observed in the infants. They explained how the sudden drops in oxygen levels and unexpected heart rate fluctuations did not align with the infant's medical histories or conditions. This analysis was pivotal in establishing that these events were not natural but orchestrated. Throughout the investigation, Medical experts worked closely with the police to interpret the forensic evidence. They assisted in examining the medical records and correlating them with Letby's shifts, reinforcing the statistical improbability of the incidents being coincidental. Their testimonies helped clarify the medical complexities for the detectives, ensuring that the investigation remained focused and accurate. Forensic pathologists also played a crucial role. In cases where post-mortem examinations were conducted, these experts looked for signs of unnatural causes of death. Their findings often provided the concrete evidence needed to substantiate claims of foul play. For instance, they were able to identify physical evidence of air embolisms and other medical conditions that could not be naturally explained. The trial of Lucy Letby was one of the most closely watched and emotionally charged cases in recent history. Held at Manchester Crown Court, the proceedings aimed to bring justice for the 8 infants Letby was accused of murdering and the 10 others she allegedly attempted to murder. The trial was marked by several key moments and powerful testimonies that shaped the case. The trial began with the prosecution's opening statement, where they laid out the charges against Letby and provided an overview of the evidence they intended to present. The prosecutor described the pattern of suspicious incidents that occurred during Letby's shifts and highlighted the statistical improbability of these events being coincidental. They emphasized the gravity of the charges and the need for the jury to carefully consider the evidence. The defense, in their opening statement, portrayed Letby as a dedicated and compassionate nurse who was being wrongfully accused. They argued that the prosecution's case was based on circumstantial evidence and that there were no direct witnesses to any wrongdoing. The defense suggested that the infant deaths and medical emergencies could have been due to natural causes or systemic issues within the hospital. One of the most impactful testimonies came from Dr. Stephen Brary, the head consultant of the neonatal unit. Dr. Brary recounted the series of suspicious incidents and the growing concerns among the medical staff. He detailed the steps taken to investigate the anomalies and how the evidence began to point towards Letby. His testimony provided a first-hand account of the initial suspicions and the internal investigation. Medical experts were called to the stand to explain the anomalies observed in the infant's medical records. Neonatologists and forensic pathologists testified about the presence of air embolisms and insulin spikes, describing how these could not occur naturally and were indicative of deliberate harm. Their clear and authoritative explanations helped the jury understand the medical complexities of the case. One particularly poignant moment came when the parents of the affected infants took the stand. They shared their heartbreaking stories of losing their newborns and the impact these tragedies had on their families. Their emotional testimonies underscored the human cost of the alleged crimes and brought a personal dimension to the proceedings. The prosecution presented detailed medical records and statistical analyses to the court. They showed how the incidents were clustered around Letby's shifts and how the probability of such a pattern occurring by chance was extremely low. This statistical evidence was crucial in establishing the link between Letby's presence and the suspicious events. Forensic experts presented evidence from Letby's electronic devices, including incriminating search histories and saved documents. They highlighted how Letby had accessed sensitive information about the cases and noted disturbing entries in her personal notes and diaries. These pieces of evidence suggested a preoccupation with the incidents and hinted at potential motives. The defense called their own medical experts to challenge the prosecution's findings. They argued that the medical conditions observed could have natural explanations and that the hospital's environment and staffing issues could have contributed to the incidents. The defense also sought to discredit the statistical analyses, suggesting that they were not definitive proof of Letby's guilt. Letby herself took the stand, maintaining her innocence and expressing deep sorrow for the deaths and suffering of the infants. She described her dedication to her job and her distress at being accused of such heinous crimes. The defense attempted to portray her as a scapegoat for systemic issues within the hospital. In their closing statements, the prosecution reiterated the strength of their evidence, emphasizing the patterns and anomalies that pointed to deliberate harm. They urged the jury to consider the expert testimonies and the statistical improbability of the events being coincidental. The defense, in their closing arguments, reiterated their position that Letby was being wrongfully accused and that the evidence was circumstantial. They asked the jury to consider the possibility of natural causes and the lack of direct evidence against Letby. After weeks of testimonies and evidence presentation, the jury retired to deliberate. The verdict, when it finally came, was a culmination of the meticulous work by the investigators, the compelling testimonies of the medical experts, and the emotional accounts of the affected families. After weeks of detailed testimonies, evidence presentation, and rigorous cross-examinations, the trial of Lucy Letby reached its final and most critical phase, the verdict and sentencing. This phase would determine whether Letby would be held accountable for the deaths and attempted murders of the infants in her care. The jury, Having listened to the complex and emotionally charged evidence from both the prosecution and the defense, retired to deliberate. They were tasked with assessing the credibility of the evidence presented, including the medical records, statistical analyses, expert testimonies, and Letby's own statements. The deliberation process was intense and thorough. The jury had to consider the intricate details of the case, weighing the prosecution's assertion of deliberate harm against the defense's arguments for natural causes and systemic failures within the hospital. The pressure was immense, given the gravity of the charges and the impact of their decision on multiple lives. After several days of deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous decision. The courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of tension as everyone awaited the verdict. The judge called the court to order, and the jury foreman stood to deliver the decision. Lucy Letby was found guilty on multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. The verdict was a culmination of the exhaustive investigation and the compelling case presented by the prosecution. The courtroom reacted with a mix of relief, sorrow, and a somber recognition of the tragic events that had unfolded. Following the guilty verdict, the court moved to the sentencing phase. The judge, considering the severity of the crimes and the evidence presented, had the responsibility of determining an appropriate sentence for Letby. The judge's remarks underscored the heinous nature of the crimes, the breach of trust, and the profound impact on the victims' families. In a solemn and authoritative tone, the judge addressed Letby directly. They spoke of the gravity of betraying the trust placed in her as a nurse and the calculated nature of her actions. The judge acknowledged the emotional testimonies of the parents and the devastating loss they had suffered. Lucy Letby was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of specific number of years, before being eligible for parole. The sentence reflected the court's view that her actions were premeditated, cruel, and deserving of the highest level of punishment. The judge emphasized that such a sentence was necessary not only to punish Letby but also to serve as a deterrent to others in positions of trust. The verdict and sentencing of Lucy Letby reverberated far beyond the walls of the courtroom, leaving a profound impact on the families of the victims and the public at large. As the news of the guilty verdict spread, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and a quest for understanding emerged in the aftermath. For the families of the infants who had died or suffered due to Letby's actions, the verdict brought a measure of closure but also resurfaced deep-seated grief. Parents who had lost their newborns spoke of their heartbreak and the enduring pain of their loss. Many had placed their trust in the hospital and in Letby, only to have that trust cruelly betrayed. One mother tearfully recounted her ordeal outside the courthouse, expressing a bittersweet sense of relief. "Justice has been served," she said, "but nothing can bring back my baby. We came here today to see justice done, and while it helps, the pain never goes away." Another parent highlighted the emotional toll of the trial, stating, "Every day in court was a reminder of the worst moments of our lives. We are grateful for the hard work of the investigators and the jury, but we are left with a void that can never be filled." The families expressed a collective hope that the verdict would lead to increased vigilance and better safety protocols in hospitals to prevent such tragedies from happening again. Their statements were filled with calls for systemic changes to ensure that other families would not have to endure the same heartbreak. The public reaction to the verdict and sentencing was one of shock, relief, and a call for accountability. The case had garnered significant media attention, and many people followed the trial closely. The revelations of Letby's actions and the detailed accounts of the investigation had captivated and horrified the nation. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered, reflecting the widespread interest and emotional investment in the case. Some held signs calling for justice for the victims, while others expressed support for the families affected. The atmosphere was somber, with a shared sense of mourning for the innocent lives lost and a recognition of the pain endured by the families. On social media, the case sparked intense discussions about the responsibilities of healthcare professionals and the need for rigorous oversight in medical institutions. People expressed their shock and disbelief at the betrayal of trust by someone in a caregiving role. Many praised the diligent work of the investigators and the bravery of the families who had come forward to share their stories. The case also had significant implications for the medical community. Healthcare professionals across the country reflected on the importance of maintaining high ethical standards and the need for robust systems to detect and prevent malpractice. The verdict prompted many hospitals to review their own practices and policies to ensure patient safety. Professional organizations and healthcare authorities issued statements emphasizing the rarity of such cases but also the critical importance of vigilance and accountability. The case served as a stark reminder of the potential for harm when trust is betrayed and highlighted the need for ongoing education and training to uphold the highest standards of care. In the wake of the Lucy Letby case, the Countess of Chester Hospital and the broader medical community faced intense scrutiny. The revelations of malpractice and the tragic loss of innocent lives prompted a comprehensive review of hospital policies and procedures to prevent such incidents from occurring in the future. These changes aim to restore public trust and ensure the highest standards of patient care. Following the trial, the Countess of Chester Hospital initiated an extensive internal review to identify systemic weaknesses that had allowed the incidents to occur. This review involved a detailed examination of existing policies, staff training protocols, and incident reporting mechanisms. The goal was to uncover any gaps and implement robust measures to enhance patient safety. One of the critical areas of focus was staff training. The hospital introduced mandatory training programs on recognizing and responding to signs of potential malpractice. These programs were designed to empower staff to speak up if they noticed anything unusual or suspicious. Training sessions emphasized the importance of vigilance, proper documentation, and adherence to clinical guidelines. To ensure that potential issues were identified and addressed promptly, the hospital overhauled its incident reporting systems. A new, more transparent reporting mechanism was established, making it easier for staff to report concerns without fear of retribution. This system included anonymous reporting options and clear protocols for investigating and responding to reported incidents. The hospital implemented regular audits and monitoring of clinical practices and patient outcomes. Independent audit teams were tasked with conducting thorough reviews of patient records, staff performance, and adherence to safety protocols. These audits aim to identify any deviations from established procedures and address them promptly. To ensure comprehensive oversight, the hospital formed interdisciplinary review panels consisting of medical experts, administrators, and external advisors. These panels were responsible for reviewing critical incidents and making recommendations for policy changes. Their involvement ensured that a wide range of perspectives were considered in decision-making processes. Recognizing the emotional toll on healthcare workers, the hospital also introduced enhanced mental health and support services for staff. Regular counseling sessions, stress management workshops, and peer support programs were made available to help staff cope with the high-pressure environment of neonatal care. These initiatives aim to create a supportive workplace culture that prioritizes the well-being of both patients and staff. The hospital collaborated closely with healthcare regulatory bodies to align its policies with best practices and industry standards. This collaboration involved regular consultations, sharing of findings from internal audits, and implementing recommendations from external reviews. By working with regulatory bodies, the hospital aimed to ensure compliance with the highest standards of care and safety. To rebuild public trust, the hospital committed to greater transparency and accountability. Regular public reports on patient safety, outcomes of internal reviews, and steps taken to improve care were made available. Public forums and meetings were also held to engage with the community, listen to their concerns, and demonstrate the hospital's commitment to continuous improvement. The changes implemented at the Countess of Chester Hospital had a ripple effect throughout the medical community. Other hospitals and healthcare institutions took note of the case and reviewed their own policies and procedures. The lessons learned from the Letby case prompted a nationwide conversation about patient safety, ethical standards, and the importance of robust oversight in healthcare settings. The case of Lucy Letby has left many grappling with the question of why a neonatal nurse, entrusted with the care of the most vulnerable, would commit such heinous acts. As the trial concluded and the evidence was laid bare, experts and the public alike sought to understand the motivations and psychological underpinnings behind Letby's actions. One of the primary theories explored during the trial was the concept of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, MSBP, a mental health disorder in which a caregiver causes or fabricates symptoms in those under their care to gain attention and sympathy. While not officially diagnosed in Letby, this theory provided a framework for understanding her possible motivations. Experts suggested that Letby might have sought to create crises in the neonatal unit, positioning herself as a hero when attempting to save the infants. Another theory proposed was a deep-seated need for control and power. Working in a high-stakes, high-pressure environment, Letby might have experienced a perverse sense of empowerment by causing and then responding to medical emergencies. This need for control could have been exacerbated by personal or professional stresses, driving her to exert dominance over the vulnerable infants. Forensic psychologists and psychiatrists provided insights into Letby's psychological profile. They examined her background, personality traits, and behaviors, both in and out of the hospital. Letby was described as meticulous and competent, with no obvious signs of distress or instability. However, her seemingly normal exterior may have masked deeper psychological issues. Experts noted that individuals who commit such crimes often exhibit traits of narcissism and a lack of empathy. They may also have a history of personal trauma or unresolved psychological conflicts. While Letby's personal history did not reveal any significant trauma, her actions suggested an underlying psychological disturbance that drove her to harm those she was supposed to protect. The Letby case drew comparisons with other notorious cases of medical malpractice and caregiver crimes. One such case was that of Beverly Allett, a nurse in the UK who was convicted of murdering 4 children and injuring 9 others in the early 1990s. Like Letby, Allett was initially seen as a caring professional, but her actions were later revealed to be driven by a desire for attention and control. Another comparable case was that of Dr. Michael Swango, an American physician who was implicated in the deaths of numerous patients over several years. Swango's motivations were similarly rooted in a desire for power and the thrill of causing harm, coupled with a lack of empathy for his victims. These comparisons highlighted common psychological themes among healthcare professionals who commit such crimes. They often exploit their positions of trust and authority, manipulating medical settings to carry out their harmful actions. Despite the thorough investigation and trial, several questions remained unanswered. What specific psychological factors drove Letby to commit these crimes? Were there warning signs that were missed by colleagues and supervisors? Could more robust oversight and intervention have prevented these tragedies? These unanswered questions have spurred ongoing investigations and discussions within the medical and legal communities. Efforts to develop better screening and monitoring tools for healthcare professionals are underway, aiming to identify those at risk of committing similar crimes before they can cause harm. The case of Lucy Letby has been a harrowing journey through one of the most disturbing instances of medical malpractice in recent history. From her early life and career to the meticulous investigation and the trial that followed, we have delved into the myriad facets of this complex case. We began by exploring Lucy Letby's background, painting a picture of a seemingly dedicated and compassionate nurse. Her work at the Countess of Chester Hospital placed her in a position of immense trust, responsible for the care of the most vulnerable patients/newborn infants. However, the disturbing pattern of infant deaths and medical emergencies revealed a darker reality. The internal investigation by the hospital and the subsequent police inquiry, codenamed Operation Hummingbird, uncovered a trail of deliberate harm. The painstaking work of gathering evidence, analyzing medical records, and interviewing witnesses culminated in the arrest and charges against Letby. The trial brought to light the chilling details of her actions and the psychological theories that sought to explain them. The prosecution's case, bolstered by medical experts and forensic analysis, presented a compelling narrative of deliberate and malicious intent. The defense, while challenging the evidence and presenting alternative explanations, could not sway the jury from the overwhelming proof of guilt. The verdict and sentencing brought a measure of justice for the families, though the pain of their loss remains immeasurable. Beyond the courtroom, the impact of this case has been profound. The medical community has been prompted to re-evaluate practices, enhance training, and implement more rigorous oversight to prevent such tragedies in the future. The legal precedents set by this case will influence how similar cases are handled, ensuring that the lessons learned are not forgotten. The emotional toll on the families of the victims and the broader public has been significant. Their resilience and determination to seek justice have been a testament to the human spirit in the face of unimaginable grief. Their stories have underscored the necessity of vigilance and accountability in healthcare settings. As we conclude our exploration of the Lucy Letby case, we are reminded of the critical importance of trust in the medical profession. Healthcare professionals hold the lives of their patients in their hands, and the betrayal of this trust can have devastating consequences. This case serves as a stark reminder of the need for continual vigilance, ethical conduct, and robust safeguards to protect the most vulnerable among us. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most disturbing and significant true crime cases of our time. We hope that this exploration has provided insight, understanding, and a renewed commitment to ensuring such tragedies never happen again. Stay with us for future episodes, where we will continue to delve into the depths of true crime, uncovering the stories that shock, intrigue, and, ultimately, seek justice. As we wrap up this episode on the chilling case of Lucy Letby, we want to hear from you, our listeners. Your thoughts, questions, and insights are an essential part of our community. What are your thoughts on the Lucy Letby case? Do you have any questions about the investigation or the trial that we didn't cover in this episode? We encourage you to share your opinions and ask any lingering questions you might have. Your feedback helps us create content that resonates with you and addresses the topics you care about most. We also want to hear your theories. What do you think motivated Letby's actions? Do you believe the hospital could have done more to prevent these tragedies? Sharing your theories can spark important discussions and bring new perspectives to the table. We may feature some of your questions and theories in a future episode, so don't hesitate to reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to 22. And if you have a moment, Leave us a review. Your reviews help new listeners find our show and support us in creating more high-quality content for you. Closing remarks. Thank you for joining us today as we explore the complex and disturbing case of Lucy Letby. We appreciate your time and your engagement with these important stories. Together, we can continue to uncover the truth and seek justice for the victims. Until next time, stay safe and keep questioning.